by my self-published book, Rain. It is a psychological thriller about a group of young adults in a psych ward who get this new counselor that's trying to understand their mental illnesses and trying to understand them. But then the counselor shortly learns that these kids might not be crazy and that this place is actually making them crazy, all the while trying to figure out what's going on with him and his psychological demons and his problems. If you would like more information about this book, be sure to hit the link in the description box below. Supporting me and buying these books actually helps me to run this. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Fiction Tea Review. So today we're going to talk about Game of Thrones Season 4, probably the best one yet. So let's get into it. You can watch this on HBO Max, Hulu, and YouTube TV. It came out in 2011, and the genre is drama and fantasy. After the death of Robb Stark at the Red Wedding, all three remaining kings in Westeros believe they have a claim to the Iron Throne. Joffrey is killed, Tyrion is to blame, and Tommen is crowned king. Meanwhile, Sansa escapes King's Landing, and Jon and the others at the Wall meet their match with the wildlings outnumbering them. Bran meets the three-eyed raven, Daenerys rules as Queen of Slaver's Bay, and Arya sails to Braavos. Directors are Alan Taylor, Alex Graves, Mark Malad, Jeremy Odesua. The cast is Emilia Clarke as Daenerys, Kit Harington as Jon Snow, Sophie Turner as Sansa, Maisie Williams as Arya, Peter Dinklage as Tyrion, Lena Headley as Cersei, and more Isaac Hempstead as Bran Stark, and Nicola Coster W as Jaime. So episode 1, Jaime gets a new golden hand, but Cersei is kind of snapping on him about him being gone for so long, and she's like, it's too late, like, and not to mention, what you gonna do with that one hand? You gonna fight? They find out about Cersei, thanks to this tattletale, finds out that something's going on with Shae and Tyrion. She's like hiding behind something. She sees Shae come out, and then she goes back to snitch to Cersei. Jon Snow tells the truth. He comes out and tells the truth about everything, and it's like, Jon Snow, could you not be more perfect? Like, come on. And it ends with Arya and the Hound end up meeting with some old enemies, and Arya gets her revenge, and she says, I think I might pick my teeth with it. Ding! And then she kills him. Episode 2, Theon is hunted like a dog. Poor Theon. I feel so bad for Theon. I mean, even though what he did in season 1, it's just like, he still doesn't deserve all this stuff that's happening to him, like torture. So this opening scene, episode 2, Theon is hunted down like a freaking animal by Ramsay Bolton. And he's told about Robb Stark's death, and Ramsay kind of like toys with it a little bit, you know. He's like, yeah, and he gives him kind of this opportunity to like assassinate him and get revenge, but he also is testing him at the same time. And poor Theon, I would have slit his throat. Kidding me, I would have, the moment he told me, yeah, Robb Stark's dead and we took over, and that would have been it for me. He'd have been done. I would have rather slit his throat than to have been a slave to him any longer. Especially after, like, he killed Robb, and I feel bad for what I did to Robb and his family. Like, it's over. You're not walking out of here. Nope. Varys ends up telling Tyrion that Cersei knows what's going on. Like, she suspects something. So just, you know, be careful, because she knows what's up. And I hate Joffrey, as we know. We all kind of do. I don't think anyone really likes Joffrey. But as much as I hate Joffrey, in this episode, that jacket, that red long jacket that he had on was super dapper, and I definitely will rock that. I also was watching, I'm like, I wonder, do they like hand stitch these pieces? Because they're just so detailed. Then we get to the scene where Tyrion has to tell Shae to basically be gone and tear her down, because he knows, like, okay, Cersei is already onto me, so at this point, if I don't get rid of her, then there's gonna be repercussions. So he goes to Shae. Him and Shae are together, and he tells her, go, you're a whore, I can't marry a whore, I can't be with a whore. And you could see how much it pains Tyrion to say that. Honestly, I was just hurt and crushed for Tyrion because I'm like, then we get to the scene with Stannis and his wife, and she has a nerve to call her daughter a little beast. And at least Stannis stood up for her. Like, Stannis sucks too, but like, at least he was like, that's my daughter, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't talk about her that way. Don't call her these names. The mom is just a disgrace, honestly. She's a disgrace as a mother. Disgrace. Is Bran Stark? There was something that the internet mentioned, like Bran Stark looks like Jaden Smith, like a war version of Jaden Smith, and honestly, I can't unsee it. They really kind of look alike. Bran kind of goes into his thing and he transcends as it travels forward and back in time. Next up, we have Joffrey and Marjorie's wedding. Oh, this is where it gets good. As the wedding is going on, Tywin and Olenna talk. I think that's her name, Olenna. This is why I love old people, because old people don't care. They've lived here long enough not to care, and they're having this conversation, and like, you could tell she gives 0 F's and Tywin don't care. And that scene made me like be like, I really love old people. Like, I just love them. They have that I don't give a F attitude, and I want to be with them when I grow up. They already know the game, been there, done that, and you could tell in that scene like they were hip. Then we get to Oberyn and his wife, who are like mad freaks, really freaky. They're kind of like this open poly relationship type of thing. They're like having sex with people, like flirting with Sir Loras. And speaking of Sir Loras, there was a scene in this episode where Jaime and Sir Loras was talking, and Jaime was jealous, and he was like, you think you're gonna get my sister? You think you're gonna, you know, have sex with her or whatever? You're not. And then Sir Loras comes with the comeback, and he's like, neither are you. Neither are you. And the look on Jaime's face is like just crumble. Like he really humbled Jaime right quick. Like, you are her sibling, so have several seats. That's basically what he told him. But Cersei's jealousy was definitely showing when she saw Brienne. Like, girl, you can't even fight. Her like outfit looked super tight and uncomfortable, and I'm like, I can imagine the actor like not having a good time having that on. Like I did like the open shoulder look at the top. The costume designers are super creative. So then Joffrey decides he's gonna put on a show of the death of the Starks, and he basically forces everyone and Sansa to watch it. And even when Tyrion tries to leave, he doesn't let them. And Olenna, she has this look on her face in this scene where it's like, she know what's up. But that scene when Olenna watches Joffrey drink the wine and she's like, somebody help the poor king, help him. It's like, it was priceless. To me, it was priceless, especially knowing what happens in later scenes. And knowing that she never liked Joffrey even before that happened is just priceless. But I will say, Joffrey's death was so unsatisfactory for me. I feel like he should have been tortured more. I feel like it wasn't enough. Like, his death, it happened way too fast, and it just wasn't doing it for me. I feel like they gave him the benefit of the doubt for his death, and he should have been tortured. Joffrey should have been tortured. I will never forgive any of the Lannisters for what they did to Ned Stark and the Starks. He should have been tortured. He should have been stripped down, flesh by flesh. His skin should have been torn off one by one. He deserved the most treacherous, torturous death of them all, and all we got was him drinking some wine and like dying. And I'm just like, I'm glad he's dead, but like, no, he deserved a worse death. He got off easy. Too easy. It's like, even in death, he got away. Now, all hail the king. Or as the Hound would say,
fuck the king.
So, episode 3 opening. Cersei's full of rage, and Tywin is like, no one's leaving the capital until I find out what's going on. And Sansa escapes with the help of the fool who she saved when Joffrey was about kind of torturing him. Of course, the person that we find out saves Sansa is predatory Peter Baelish. And later, midway into the episode, Tommen is crowned king, and there's a scene where they're standing there over Joffrey's dead body, and Tywin just casually just moves on, like, yeah, we're gonna move on now. It's time to, you know, crown the new king. Meanwhile, Cersei is like still mourning, and she's just like, this is not the time and place. And he's just like, the show must go on. Like, whatever, he said, we're gonna move on now. We're gonna crown the new king. But honestly, I'm just gonna say it, I felt no remorse for Cersei in this scene. I mean, that's what she get. That's what she get. I will never forgive her, nor, like I mentioned before, I would never forgive the Lannisters for what they did to Ned Stark or the Stark family, and just the misery and the treachery and the terribleness and the pain that they put the kids through. Never forgive her. She deserved this. It gave me absolute life to watch her suffer because she's a terrible person. But I will say the scene where Jaime rapes her, that was absolutely not okay. And it was pretty effed up. Not only that, he like rapes her while her dead son's there. While both of their dead son there, while their dead child is there. And I'm just like, I thought the incest was bad. But like this, to top it off, he makes it worse. It's worse because he's raping her, but like he's raping her right in front of their son's dead body. And I'm like, well, I thought the incest was bad, but this whole thing, this family, is just a tornado of disaster. We get to the Hound and Arya, and the Hound basically tells Arya, like, how many Starks need to die for you to understand that people are S-H-I-T shit? They're nothing. Then there's the scene with Sam and Gilly, and Sam is a real one. Like, Sam, he might not be like a fighter and a good fighter, but he don't play about Gilly. He told that lady, no, she's not here to be sold or raped or anything. She's not a prostitute. She's just here to sleep and to stay. Like, that's it. He told the lady straight, like, no, this is why she's here. She needs a place to stay. Then we get back to Sir Oberyn, the Prince Oberyn, and his wife, and their whole poly thing. And the whole time, honestly, in that scene, I was thinking, like, nobody cared about STDs. No one cared about STDs, STIs in this brothel. Like, this time period, so many people probably had so many diseases, and I'm just like, all I can think about is just all of it just flying around in the air. Just, because I'm pretty sure they didn't use protection, especially during those times. Did they even create condoms in that time? I highly doubt it. Then we get to the very, very sad scene where Tyrion has to go through so much. So now Tyrion has to tell Podrick, you have to go, don't sacrifice your life for mine. And that scene between them was like so sad, like deeply, deeply sad. I whined like a baby when Tyrion had to tell Podrick, like, go on, don't risk your life for mine. He's like this father figure for Pod, and Pod and Brienne are like the most loyal in King's Landing, and you just know they're too good for King's Landing. But like, the relationship that those two have is just so beautiful, and it was just heartbreaking to see them exchange their goodbyes. Tyrion did tell him, like, you won't die on my watch. Like, you won't die on my watch. Save yourself. Queen Khaleesi speaks and she says, I will answer justice with justice. And I'm like, yes, the queen has spoken. We also get to see the beginning of a romance brew between Grey Worm and Missandei. Episode 4, Cersei actually goes to Marjorie and says, my son will need help. He's gonna need all the help he can get, and he's gonna need your help. I know Cersei's desperate because she's actually going to someone she doesn't like and saying, like, help my child. Basically the last child she got, because her daughter got sent off. So we also learned in this episode that Peter Baelish and Lysa, Sansa's aunt, had this secret love thing going on, and that he's the one that convinced her to write the letter to kill her husband, and then they end up having sex, and Sansa has to kind of sit and listen to that. And I'm just like, gross. They're disgusting. I think the beginning of the episode, after Cersei had got raped by Jaime, and I started to like try to open myself up to like, okay, maybe I'm gonna feel bad for Cersei, she's going through a lot, until she came for Tyrion, and then I was like, nope, I'm taking it back. Disrespecting Tyrion is always a no-no, so nope. It's like, everybody hated your son. Everyone hated your son. Don't try to accuse Tyrion just because he used to check your son and you didn't, and you couldn't. Sansa learns that her aunt Lysa is just a jealous hag. She sees that Peter Baelish is showing interest in her, and she's kind of like questioning her, and I'm just like, lady, how old are you? Relax. Jon Snow and Bronn end up in this same area, and instead of going to Jon and saying like, I'm alive and, you know, help, Bronn kind of just listens to the other kid and kind of continues on his quests because he has to see the three-eyed raven, he has to see that through. There's this scene where like Jon shoves a sword through this guy's back of his head out to his mouth, and I'm like, woo, that's Game of Thrones for you. But I did love seeing Ghost and Jon's reunion. It was so cute. I love that this episode ended with all the women kind of cheering as they burned that place down with that guy who was like having sex with his daughter to the ground. Everybody was cheering, and you know, Jon had saved all the ladies, and that was a great way to end that. Episode 6, Theon's sister tries to come and like save him and help him, and he's so scared that he doesn't go, and he ends up caging himself back in. And after she gets the dog sick on her, she's like, I'm done, my brother's gone, I'm lost. I mean, at least she tried to save him. Like, even though I would have been like, I didn't come here for nothing, I'm dragging you out of this place. But poor Theon is so conditioned that he's just so terrified and petrified and traumatized to leave, and he doesn't. I kind of felt really embarrassed for him, because I'm like, we all remember how Theon used to be, and now just look at him. Sad. A grown man who's now been stripped down to be a pet of a boy. A bastard boy. He plays psychological mind games on him, because then he tells him, yeah, go out and pretend to be Theon and do this for me. Meanwhile, Queen Daenerys is sitting on her throne having to listen to the people, and of course they're speaking their language, but it's really funny. I found it interesting because I feel like it sounds like the language is like a mixture of like, I know it's a made-up language, but it sounds like the language is a mixture of Espanol and French. So once again, Queen Daenerys is being underestimated by her enemies, and Prince Oberyn basically says, doesn't she have Severus? Doesn't she have basically 2 older people who's been in the game for the longest on her side, and she has 3 dragons? And I'm just like, this is the same thing that Robert Baratheon warned them about, and nobody listened. He said, 1 army, 1 loyal army. And he kept on saying, you know, telling Ned even, like, we need to kill her, we need to kill her. And now look. They should listen. Of course, Cersei is still in denial, and she's like, whatever, that girl ain't gonna do nothing. But Tywin is actually like, no, he has a point here, like, okay, we're gonna take her out now. Then there's the scene with Prince Oberyn and Varys, and Varys kind of plants a seed in the prince's mind, and he's like, you know, if you take your distraction off of desire, you can actually really focus. And he like looks at the throne and walks away, leaving Prince Oberyn to kind of ponder and think, maybe I should go after the throne. I mean, it definitely was a power move, and it definitely sparked something in Prince Oberyn. Next scene, my poor Tyrion is being trialed, and Baron comes to snitch, and he says, you know, Tyrion was after Joffrey. He striked Joffrey, and Tyrion's like, did you forget that Joffrey was like torturing Sansa and threatening her life? Like, what are you talking about? Then little pervy Maester comes up there and says like, oh, I found this necklace. And they find out that like Sansa had on this necklace that had poison in it, and Tyrion is like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know she probably wanted revenge, but I don't think she killed him. And then someone has the nerve to like mention that Joffrey was like this noble prince, and I'm like, Joffrey? Now you know dang well Joffrey was noble nothing. He was a coward. And everyone hated that kid. Literally everyone. It's so sad because nobody looked out for Tyrion. Everybody's coming for Tyrion. The only person that cared for Tyrion, even Varys, was like, yeah, he looked kind of like, Varys had to play his part, but at the same time, like, he's shady. Because he's supposed to be friends with Tyrion, but you know, he served the realm. He doesn't really have any friends. But even he was like, yeah, I think it's kind of suspicious that him or Sansa wasn't really upset about, you know, Robb Stark's death. And I'm like, the only person that really truly cared about Tyrion is Jaime Lannister. And he's the only one that actually tried to help and talk to Tywin and say, Dad, like, let this go. And Tywin's like, no, I'm not letting this go. Tyrion's gonna admit that he's guilty, and I'm gonna send him to the wall, and you're gonna go to Castle Rock, and that's the plan. That's that. Nothing more said about it. It gets me every time that they're grown people and they're listening to, they're taking orders like they're children. So then we get back to the scene, and Jaime goes to Tyrion and tells him like, just confess. Just confess. It's gonna be over soon. Like, just confess. And then boom, ball is dropped. When Shay pulls up, Shay walks in and Tyrion's like, oh everyone's like, you know, Cersei got that smirk on her face, but his face drops and his heart sinks because he knows what's to come, you know, with Shay showing up. And what happens? She proceeds to tell it all. I mean, she spills every drop of tea, and Tyrion kind of looks at her and he's like, please, Shay, don't. And she's like, I'm a whore, remember? And I'm like, whoo. Bad timing for Tyrion, but like, I kind of get it. Like, and then I think about that saying where it's like, you don't know a woman's scorn, and I'm like, she was hurt. She was hurt. But Tyrion being Tyrion is like, look, I might as well go out with a bang. I should have killed Joffrey. I should have let Stannis come and kill all of you people. You're a disgrace. And he ends with, I want trial by combat. Episode 7, Jaime has the nerve to come to Tyrion. It's like, you're banging this whore, whatever. And Tyrion's like, Dad loves you more than me. Like, he only cares about you. He loves you no matter what you do. He hates me. I mean, even if you're banging your own sister and have kids with her. And Jaime's like, watch it now. Tyrion strikes a nerve once again. One thing about Tyrion, as I always say, he is not scared to say what needs to be said. When it needs to be said, he don't. The next scene, and once again, they still do not respect Jon Snow. And Bran comes to visit Tyrion, and he's basically like, yeah, we're friends, but you never risked your life for me, so say their goodbyes. Then we get to the scene with Stannis and his wife, and she's a blubbering fool. Like, yes, the Lord of Light brought you here to have sex with my husband and give him a child. And I'm just so happy about that. Then we get to the scene with Daenerys and Ser Jorah. And you know that he was jealous because he's like madly in love with Daenerys. And he had to watch the handsome guard guy come out of her room. And he was like kind of jealous. But he felt better when they had that conversation and she changed her mind about something. Then next scene, the Hound ends up telling Arya about what happened to his face and she tries to help him. And even though I said it before, this is actually the episode where Prince Oberyn told Tyrion, I will fight for you because I want revenge from my sister. Tyrion be mad lucky like every single time. All the time. He's just always lucky. Next scene, Sansa and her cousin, the little boy whose name I forgot, she ends up striking him. Lysa ends up seeing Peter kiss Sansa, and you know, there's consequences to these actions. One thing though I noticed was like, this scene, they looked a lot older, like Sansa and the little boy, and I was like, did they shoot this a little later, like after vacation or something? They just looked really old, like they looked older than like the previous episode, so I was kind of like, were these shot like later on? But anyway, Lysa, she catches them, and then later on she tries to basically kill Sansa, and Peter stops her and pushes her down the little hole thing. And he basically tells her like, it was never you, like it was always Cat. Goodbye. So the wildlings come to where Gilly is, and luckily she gets saved by Ygritte because of her baby, but then Sam is like super devastated because he thinks that, you know, Gilly's dead and something happened to her, and his friends cheer him up and they're like, you never know, like she survived a lot, like she probably made it through, don't worry. And then this is the actual scene where Grey Worm kind of spies on Missandei, and like he's like kind of halfway underwater looking at her. She like covers herself up and he goes underwater, and they have that little cute moment. And she basically asks Daenerys like, do you think all his parts were cut off? And Daenerys like, I don't know, but you know she's curious and she wants to find out. Next scene, Sansa tells her lie, and she lies very well. I think she learned a lot from King's Landing. And she cries and says that Lysa was acting crazy and Peter saved her. And Peter's like, you know, why you saved me? And she's like, I gotta protect myself. And Selmy finds out the truth about Jorah and goes straight to Daenerys. He basically goes tell Dany, and I mean, the betrayal in her eyes just gave me, I was rooting for you, we were all rooting for you. And the Hound and Arya, I think they're about to take Arya to see her aunt Lysa. And then come to find out she's dead too. It's like every single time they think they're gonna go see somebody from their family, they die or they're dead. And they just start laughing. Arya just starts laughing because it's like, at this point, it's like, it's ridiculous. My whole family's probably dead at this point. This happens all the time. And she just Sansa, I feel like this is the episode where Sansa kind of grew into her womanhood. She's walking down the steps and she's like draped in all black, just looking immaculate. Like, I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm Sansa Stark now. And it jumps back to the scene with Jaime and Tyrion. The scene with Jaime and Tyrion is telling the story about a beetle, which is really about his dad, and he's like, why does he hate me so much? I don't understand. And Jaime's like, I don't know, like, I don't know. And then it gets to the fight and Prince Oberyn comes so close, but then he messes it up because he's just doing too much and just wanting too much and say her name, like, dude, you had him. That's the mountain. When he was down, he should have just ended it right then and there. And unfortunately, him not doing that literally got like his whole... The mountain does this thing where he rips out his entire like jaw. Oh, such a gruesome scene. I just wonder how that scene was done behind the scenes. Like, I would love to see that behind the scenes. But it ends with Tyrion being sentenced to death. Episode 9, Gilly and Sam reunite. But the wildlings are here and the battle begins. The wildlings make it to the wall and it's on. The battle is on. The thing about this is that Sam's growth has, like, Sam has grown so much. I mean, we get to this episode and Sam decides to fight. Like, he's like, I'm no longer that chubby coward kid anymore. Like, I'm Sam. I have to protect Gilly. I have to protect the baby. Like, he grows into himself in this scene. I'm like, you go, Sam. Like, I like Sam. And he even tells the little boy, like, you have to fight, do something. Unfortunately, we lose Pip. Poor Pip did not deserve to die the way that he did. We also lose Ygritte. The little boy ends up killing Ygritte. But to his defense, Sam did say, you know, get up, do something, you have to fight. And they were considered the enemy. And he was just a kid. Even though he does some things later on that I hate. But talking as of the right. Also, tell me why that guy was hiding with Gilly after he was talking all that smack. But then he was in there hiding with a woman and a child and was not out there fighting. Even the little boy was out there fighting. Coward. And lastly, as Ygritte dies, she tells Jon Snow, you know nothing, Jon Snow. And Jon has to watch her die. And you can see, like, after that, even though Jon has always been a leader, like, he was just doing what he thought was best as a leader and just, you know, being a mini little version of that. And the episode ends with Jon saying, like, you know, I gotta go to the Wildlands base and figure this whole thing out, tell them what's going on. And he gives Sam the sword and he says, just in case I don't come back. And Sam is like, I hope you come back. Episode 10, Jon gets there. He comes clean with the truth. That's why we love Jon. He's so honest. And he can fight. And he's cute. But Jon goes to the wildling, basically tells him the truth. He tells him, like, you guys should basically leave. The guy's like, we not leaving. This is my territory. This is my place. Like, no. Accents are so strong. I mean, especially in this episode, like, you could... The thickness of their accents is crazy. Stannis shows up and Jon tells him who he is. And respectfully, Stannis, you know, he respects Jon because he knows, like, Ned was a good person. And Ned is the one that told one of his people to contact Stannis to let him know that he is a rightful... He should be on the throne. Next scene, Cersei and the Maester, not so much really a Maester, brings the mountain back to life, kind of patches him up in a way. Cersei's still a terrible person, I don't like her, but I will say she don't play about her children. No games. She basically said if anyone does anything to her child, she will burn the place to the ground. And I was like, well, I don't like Cersei, but I stand on that. She ends up coming clean to Tywin, her dad, about her and Jaime. He's in complete denial. He's like, I don't want to hear it. We all know that he knew. He just want to live in denial. And he's like, no, I don't want to hear this filth. I don't want to hear this mess. Nope. Don't talk to me about this. Next scene, Queen Daenerys gives his slave free will to go back to his master because he's old and he said that's all he knows. That's all he wants to do. And Sami kind of tells her, like, this is going to backfire. She ends up having to lock up her dragons because it killed one of the people's children. And you could see that she was really, like, distraught in that scene to have to do that because they still are her kids too. Jon ends up hearing about how Ygritte loved him, and the red-haired guy with the red ginger, the ginger guy with the ginger beard tells tells Jon, like, yeah, she loved you, I could tell, because she always talked about killing you all the time. And he tells him, like, she needs to be buried, like, in the north, the real north. And he goes and he does that. He pays homage to her in that way and buries her. And she just looks so peaceful and, like, at peace and happy, and it was nice. Then we end up getting to Bran and Mira and the brother, and they get saved by the children of the forest. Brienne and Pod end up meeting Arya and the Hound. Brienne fights the Hound, kills the Hound, well, injures the Hound really badly, and the Hound is just kind of like, help me, just kill me now. And Arya kind of just leaves him there for dead. And Brienne, she's of course looking for Arya because she made that vow to Catelyn. But Arya takes off. Jaime ends up getting Tyrion out with the help of Varys. But before Tyrion goes, he has to do one thing. He ends up killing Shae. He ends up killing Tywin Lannister. And you could see that he was really, he really didn't want to kill Shae, but it was kind of like, it's you or me. And his dad, honestly, he deserved that. Something hot about when Tyrion killed his dad. I was just like, I loved you before, but now, who else would have done it? No one. The bells start ringing, and we know that Tywin is, everybody's about to find out in the capital. It's like, I don't care. Team Tyrion, he can never do no wrong in my eyes. Shae, I love them together. I like Shae, but whatever. It's Tyrion over everyone. And Tywin, he deserved it, honestly. He hated his own son. Disgrace. Arya ends up on her journey, on her quest to Bravos, because Valo Macules, all men must die. Well, just overall, such a great season. This might be one of my favorite seasons yet so far. Just really good season. Definitely recommend it. Definitely subscribe to this channel and watch this, and I will see you all next time in the next video, and peace out.